Hello everyone, how are you all doing? Welcome back to online video classes by Konnur English Medium School. Today we are going to visit the poetry section of the part 1 of your English textbook. Let's take a look. These are the poems in the part 1 section of the textbook. The poems are To a Pair of Sarus Cranes, Abraham Lincoln's Letter, Vachana, Lakinwa, and A Poison Tree. So the first poem, To a Pair of Sarus Cranes, written by Mohan Singh, is today's topic of this class. So we are going to talk about birds today. I'm sure you have all heard about a species of birds called cranes. Yes, cranes are tall birds. They have long legs and a long beak, and some of them also have colored feathers on their necks. So those are the general characteristics of crane birds. Among crane birds, there is a species called cranes, Sarus cranes. Sarus cranes is the topic of this poem. So this poem is all about Sarus cranes. This is written by Mohan Singh. However, Mohan Singh is not our former Prime Minister of India here. He is an IAS officer as well as a poet. We will talk more about the poet of this poem a bit later. So follow the text on the slide here. What does it say? Sarus cranes, also known as Indian cranes. So Sarus cranes is a species of crane birds, and because they are mainly found in the Indian subcontinent, they are also known by the name Indian cranes, are the tallest birds not only among the crane species but also among all flying birds. So something special about this bird is that they are tallest among all the crane species. Not only that, they are tallest among all flying birds. Yes. So ostrich, for example, it doesn't fly. It's taller than the Sarus cranes. But among the flying birds, Sarus cranes rank on the top. Yes. In terms of height, of course. So at nearly 6 feet, so see, they are as tall as human beings. At nearly 6 feet, these magnificent birds look as tall as human beings. Their bodies are grey in color except their heads and upper neck, which are covered in red feathers. So their bodies are usually grey except their necks, which are covered in red feathers. Yes. Would you like to see a picture of these birds, Sarus cranes? Yes. Well, I'll show you quite a few pictures of Sarus cranes. I have collected some Sarus crane pictures for you. Now, this poem is a beautiful poem. However, it's a very sad poem. You will come to know why it is sad. It will definitely make you sad at the end too. Sarus cranes are among all the birds, they have a very, very rare quality, and that quality is what we are going to talk about in this poem written by Mohan Singh. Those are two Sarus cranes you see there. One is male and one is female. They always live in pairs, and most of the pictures you find online, you will see them in pairs together. You see their bodies are grey, they are covered in grey feathers. Yes, it's called plumage. Plumage is the feathers on the body of a bird. They are covered in grey plumage, and the upper neck, most of the neck is also grey, covered in grey feathers. Their upper necks are covered in red feathers. Red feathers. They look magnificent. Yes, they look beautiful. So where do we find Sarus cranes? I said they live in Indian subcontinent, that's why they're also known by the name Indian cranes. Yes? Sarus cranes are native to northern India, some parts of China, Pakistan and Australia. So they are native mainly to the northern parts of India, although some are also found in some parts of China, Pakistan and Australia. Their conservation status is now threatened, and it is said that only 10 to 15,000 Sarus cranes can be found in India presently. I'll tell you something about conservation status. What is conservation status? We know that some animals have already become extinct. Extinct in the sense you will not find them anywhere. Not even one of them. Some of these animals. For example, we have talked about the bird dodo. Yes, last year when you were in 9th grade, we talked about the bird dodo. You do not find any dodo birds anywhere in the world right now because they've all been extinct. Extinction happens mostly because of human activity and also because of some natural causes. Dinosaurs are extinct, not because of human activity. There were no human beings then. So when we talk about the number of a particular group of animals, and if we think that the number is reducing, declining, their population is declining, then we categorize them on a conservation status table. I will show you what conservation status table looks like. You see this image here? There are some indicators here on this image, yes? You see X, EW, CR, EN, VU, NT, LC. Right? So these are different groups on the conservation status table. If any animal is it's categorized as LC, that means least concern. So abundant population of that particular animal is present. So its life is not in danger. So we will categorize them as LC. If you see NT for that particular animal or bird, then it is near threatened. Threatened in the sense its population has dwindled, it's declined. So it's reaching the verge of danger. These three indicate that it is in serious trouble. Yes. So VU is vulnerable. So if an animal is categorized as VU, then its life is in danger. So if we ignore it, then maybe in a near future it will become extinct. So see, it progresses like this, from least concern to nearly threatened to vulnerable to endangered. You must have heard about endangered species. Yes, endangered species. Endangered species of animals are those whose numbers have drastically declined, and if nothing is done about it, then very soon they'll become extinct. We will never get to see them again after that, maybe in pictures and videos, except that. So endangered. Then we have CR, which is critically threatened. Critically threatened. Critically threatened is almost at the verge of extinction. So very few of those individuals have left. Very few individuals of that particular animal have left. That is when we categorize them as critically threatened. So all these three come under threatened level of the conservation chart. Yes. So right now Sarus cranes are here. They are critically threatened. Critically threatened. So that means their number have come down so drastically that despite the efforts by the government and other civil bodies and NGOs, the poaching and hunting has taken a big toll on their population. So in the previous slide here, yes, you saw that their number is only 10 to 15,000 right now in India. 10 to 15,000, and that's also rapidly reducing. It's declining. So they are considered critically threatened. Now, if this continues, then they will be placed in EW. EW is extinct in the wild. Extinct in the wild means you will not find them in their natural habitat. For example, tigers, Bengal tigers live in forests, in jungle, yes? So if we categorize them, they are not right now, if we categorize them as EW, that means they've all died in their natural habitat. Only the captured ones, those who have been kept in captivity, like in cages, in zoos for example, only those remain. All others in their natural world have died. So that is what EW stands for. So these critically threatened birds, the Sarus cranes, will soon reach EW if the situation continues. And after that, you have EX, which is extinct. Extinct means they're not found anywhere. Not in their natural habitat, not in captivity, not in cages anywhere, not in zoos. They are gone forever. Not a single individual of that particular species remains. So this conservation status is very important when we study animals in general. Some of them are already in this bracket. So like Sarus cranes for example. Well, all this is not part of a poem, okay? This is not part of the poem to a pair of Sarus cranes. I am giving you some extra information here so that you understand the theme and the intention behind writing this poem. It's very important that you understand it and remember it as well. You do not have to include any of this information in your answers, yes? If questions are asked from this poem, you do not need to include any of this information. But this information will give you support and proper fundamental understanding of the poem so that your answers will be meaningful and effective. These beautiful birds are considered a symbol of fidelity. Remember, I said in the beginning of this presentation that these birds have a very rare quality in them, yes? which we call rare because it's not seen among most other animals and birds. It's called fidelity. What is fidelity? Faithfulness. Faithfulness is not breaching the trust of the other. Yes, if I am faithful to you, I do not breach your trust. Yes, I keep your trust. If you are faithful to me, you don't hurt my trust. So staying faithful. Faithfulness. So what kind of faithfulness are we talking about when we say fidelity about Sarus cranes? They live in pairs, a male and a female, and are known to stay faithfully together their whole life. This is what we are talking about. These birds, Sarus cranes, they always live in a pair. Yes, a male bird and a female bird. A male Sarus crane and a female Sarus crane. And what is wonderful is they never leave each other and go with other partners. No, once they are paired, yes, they are paired for life. Until their death, they do not leave each other. This is a wonderful quality. It's a wonderful, wonderful quality. A rare quality, definitely, yes. So we call that fidelity. Fidelity. Fidelity is faithfulness. In Kannada, for fidelity, there is an interesting word for that. It's called dampatyanishte. Dampatyanishte. So they are paired, right? They are like married couple, even without marriage, without all the ritualistic ceremony of we human beings, even without all of that, they have such faithfulness in their partnership. So they live together until they die. This is a wonderful, rare quality among birds, which Sarus cranes all the time exhibit. So people say that if one of a pair is killed, its mate will die of a broken heart. Isn't that really surprising? Isn't that wonderful? Yeah. If one of them, among the pair, yes, if one dies, what happens to the other? Will it be able to carry on with its life? Will it find another partner, another bird for its companionship? No. The other bird will die of a broken heart. It will be hurt so much after it loses its partner, whether it is male or female, that is gone. The other one will be heartbroken and it will die. It will die, it will not eat anything, it will just sit there and it will die. That is the background of this, a beautiful poem called To a Pair of Sarus Cranes. Yes? Let's look at another picture of Sarus cranes together. Together. Yes? You already saw one before, but this is another. So, like I said, if you search on Google about Sarus cranes, most of the pictures you see will be them in pairs, together in their companionship. It is also said that harming a Sarus crane brings bad luck. You know, there is this belief among people who live in areas where Sarus cranes are found. I will tell you where we find them most of the times. It is believed that if you kill a Sarus crane, it brings bad luck to you. It brings bad luck. But still, wildlife trade and hunting of these birds continue. Have you heard about wildlife trade? What do you think is wildlife trade? Wildlife refers to creatures, animals, birds, etc. that live out in the open world, in the wild where human activity has not affected anything at all. So they live in their natural habitat, yes? So these animals are killed because of their skin. You had a poem called Tiger, yes, last year in your 9th syllabus. Tiger, we talked about how tigers' life is threatened as well. So they are also among the critically threatened or the threatened bracket of conservation status. So why does it happen? Why are these animals hunted? Well, they are hunted mainly because of their skin or because of some other part of their body that is somehow valuable to commerce. So most of this happens illegally. It's called poaching, illegal hunting, yes, poaching. So these birds are hunted because of their feathers, So this illegal hunting, this poaching is going on. Even though there is a belief that killing these magnificent birds actually brings bad luck to you, people still hunt them. The poaching activity still continues. Here is another picture of them, a pair of Sarus cranes, yes? Sarus cranes mainly live on wetlands. Now you already came to know where you find these birds. You find them in northern parts of India. You find them, some of them also are found in China, Pakistan and in Australia. But what kind of area or habitat do you find them in? Do you find them in jungles, or do you find them in urban settlements like towns and cities? Do you find them near coastal areas? Yes, coastal areas are areas which have beaches, yes? They are very close to the oceans or seas. Do you find them there, or do you find them in hilly regions, mountainous terrains? Where do you find them? Geographically, talking about Sarus cranes, they live in wetlands. What are wetlands? Well, wetlands are land areas in which you find, a constant presence of water. Now this happens usually around river mouths, deltas as you call them, near deltas, where the mouth releases itself into the ocean. Large areas, these deltas are large areas. So sometimes these waters rush into the nearby lands, and these lands stay wet all the time, yes? The water is not very deep there, no. They are shallow. These areas are very shallow. So you can step into them. You will not drown in them. So, but water is always present there. Such lands are called wetlands. So these wetlands are present in some parts of the northern India, especially. There is one called Harike wetland in Punjab state. So that's where you find these birds. So if you go to Harike wetland in Punjab, you will find these birds there, Sarus cranes there. Yes. Now that wetland has also been declared as a sanctuary, yes? Because of the poet himself, the efforts of the poet Mohan Singh himself. He made sure that these birds are protected. Yes, even after that, the illegal hunting is continuing, the poaching is continuing. But this man, Mohan Singh, he put in a lot of efforts in convincing authorities to designate that Harike wetland area in Punjab as sanctuary. What is a sanctuary? Well, it's a shelter provided for birds here in this sense, yes. What do we call that? Pakshidhama in Kannada, yes, Pakshidhama. So, lot of birds come to that area actually, not just Sarus cranes who are native to that land. Many migratory birds from different regions of the world visit that place during different seasons. So, it must be a wonderful area. I would love to visit that place once and maybe see Sarus cranes. And I believe you would love to see Sarus cranes as well, especially after completely reading this poem. And to an observer, their behavior can be quite entertaining as they sing in unison, make funny movements and even dance. Well, Sarus cranes enjoy their lives, yes, together. So if you are standing at a distance and you observe these birds, how they behave, you know, their behavior can be quite amusing. It can be an entertainment for you because they are funny, you know, they sing, they make funny sounds together, and they even dance together. As you see in this picture, you can see that they are actually singing together. Actually, I had a video. I didn't bring it because you wouldn't hear the sound here. But in that video, you can check it on YouTube. These birds, they show a dance performance, which is really beautiful. So you can observe them for hours without getting tired or bored of it. Now let's talk about the man who wrote this poem. Yes, his name is Sardar Mohan Singh, and you see he is IAS. Yes, so we are not talking about our former Prime Minister, Mr. Mohan Singh. Yes, this is a different Mohan Singh. This man, he was an IAS officer. He passed away a few years ago. He was an IAS officer. Although he was a government official, he was very much interested in birds. Not just an observer of birds, he actually spent a lot of time in his life for their welfare as well. He photographed many birds, and if they needed help, he made sure that their region, their habitat received the protection from government authorities. He wrote some literary works on birds, like this poem for example. So he is Sardar Mohan Singh, yes, the IAS officer, the poet of this poem, To a Pair of Sarus Cranes. Another picture of this man, Sardar Mohan Singh, a poet, bird lover and nature observer. I don't know if you are able to see, but in this picture, right here on his hand, there is a bird perching on that hand. Yes, on his hand. There is a bird there. So it's a beautiful photograph to me. So he was a poet. Besides being a government official, besides being a bureaucrat, he was a poet, and he was a bird lover and nature observer. This poem has been selected from a collection of his poems, a book called Village Poems. So this comes from that group, that collection of poems, Village Poems. The poem is a sad tale of the death of a pair of Sarus cranes. So I told you until now that this poem is about Sarus cranes. The theme of this poem is about their life. But what exactly are we talking about here is an incident, a sad incident in which Sarus cranes die. Now why would anybody write a poem on such an incident? Poems are meant to be beautiful usually, yeah? They are meant to be pleasing. Yeah, that's the general idea of poems. Most of the poems we see in textbooks especially, they are not sad ones. Yes? Yes, of course there are a few ones in your syllabus, but most of them they are meant to entertain you, make you feel cheerful. But this poem is not one of them. This poem is a sad story, sad tale. Yes, T-A-L-E, tale is another word for what? Story, of course, yes, but don't confuse it with another tail, which is a tail tail. Yeah, that's a different thing. So monkeys have tails, for example. But when we say tail tail, it's a story. So it's a sad story of the death of a pair of Sarus cranes. So when we say pair, we are not talking about the death of only one bird. We are talking about the death of the two of them. Yes, the two of them. That idea itself is already a sad one. Through this poem, the poet effectively brings out the plight of Sarus cranes as they are mercilessly hunted by human beings. So that answers the question, why would anybody write about the death of birds? He wrote about the death of Sarus cranes because he wants to tell us in what a sorrowful state, in what a merciful state their life right now is. They are being hunted continually, regularly. So through this poem, he wants to convey that message, that their life is in danger. Something very similar to the poem Tiger. Yes, you had that last year about how tigers are being hunted and how their numbers are decreasing. The poet leaves the reader in deep sadness as he tells us what happens to the female crane after her mate is killed by the hunters. Okay, so this is the poem. In this poem, the male crane is killed by the hunters, and its partner, the female crane, we already talked about this because in the beginning itself, we came to know that one bird, after it loses its mate, the Sarus bird, dies. It doesn't live forever after that. It doesn't live longer after that. So here, the male bird is shot, and then what happens to the female bird? That female bird also perishes. It dies. That is the poem here. That is the idea in this poem. Okay, now before we analyze this poem, before we understand this poem line by line, yes, I'm going to explain it line by line because there are a lot of interesting literary devices used in this poem, like figures of speech, for example. Before we get to that part, into the details, we will first read this poem. It's not a very long poem, so let's read the poem. And I want you to follow me line by line. The male was shot as he necked to pull the reluctant sun out from the rim of horizon. The male was shot. That's the opening line of the poem. Yes. In the first line itself, we have tragedy. We have death. The male was shot. So when we say the male, yes, we are talking about the Sarus male, the male Sarus crane. The male was shot as he necked to pull the reluctant sun out from the rim of horizon. She flew crying as he was picked up, hands and jaws, and a proud neck was humbled to lie like dirty linen in a coarse washing bag. Yes, did you follow that? She flew crying as he was picked up, hands and jaws, and a proud neck was humbled to lie like dirty linen in a coarse washing bag. She circled the sky in movements of grace over his disgraceful end. She circled the sky in movements of grace over his disgraceful end. The killers went away and she returned to the death scene with grief that inscribed its intensity in dots and pits, like the Morse code of birds' sorrow transmitted to the air. Look at the words, yes? We will get to their meaning later. The killers went away and she returned to the death scene with grief that inscribed its intensity in dots and pits, like the Morse code of birds' sorrow transmitted to the air. With her beak, she kissed a few feathers, picked the ones that wind had not taken away, and sat to hatch the blood-stained feathers into a toddling chick. Again, With her beak, she kissed a few feathers, picked the ones that the wind had not taken away, and sat to hatch the blood-stained feathers into a toddling chick. And this is the last stanza of the poem, and this carries so much meaning. Yes? Until now, the stanzas narrated the events in the poem. In the last one, there is a lot of poetical devices used here, and also it becomes our responsibility to analyze fully and understand all those things, the complexities of the language used here, so that we will be able to answer questions. Yes? A wave of the seas she had never seen came to her from far away and carried her to him. She went away beyond Hume's words, beyond the legends and fables of human love. Once again, a wave of the seas she had never seen came to her from far away and carried her to him. She went away beyond Hume's words, beyond the legends and fables of human love. That's the poem, yes? These few stanzas make up the poem. Now we are going to read these lines one by one, stanzas one by one, and we are going to understand their meaning. We are going to analyze the complexities of language there, the figures of speech and other things. This is the first stanza. The male was short as he necked to pull the reluctant sun out from the rim of horizon. Yes? Let's analyze this stanza first. It is early morning and the sun is slowly appearing on the horizon as though he is feeling a bit lazy or reluctant that day. There is a pair of Sarus cranes, the male is stretching his beautiful neck to look at the rising sun. He seems to be filled with joy as well as impatience at the prospect of watching the morning sun. Okay, now while you are watching this video, I recommend that you stop whenever you see these notes. Yes, this is an explanation because I might just say it and then and finish this poem, but then after a few days you might be wondering about some words or some phrases or some ideas there hidden there. So you might be actually get confused there. You might just get confused. So to prevent that from happening, it's a good idea to make note of these notes. Yes, just jot down the points that you see in the slides. You can pause the video every time you see a presentation, an analysis of a stanza, and then you can jot down the points. Okay, let's continue. It is early morning. The sun is slowly appearing on the horizon as though he is feeling a bit lazy or reluctant that day. And why do we say that? Because the male was short as he necked to pull the reluctant sun out from the rim of the horizon. What is the horizon? Horizon is as long as you can see, and at a distance far away. It seems that the sky and the earth, they meet, no? If there are no buildings in front of you, if they don't block your vision. Towards the far end, it's as if the sky is meeting the earth. You know, that is called horizon. In Kannada, it's called a diganta. Yes, horizon. So the sun was rising. It's sunrise time. It's early morning. The sun is rising, and these birds are out there already. They have come out. Yes, they are early risers. The birds. So the sun is slowly coming up, and these birds are curious to see the sunrise. I mean, it's like a joyful moment for them every day. Maybe we don't enjoy sunrise. Some of us, wake up only after sunrise. But these birds love to watch sunrise every day. They are there even before the sun starts rising. So the male bird is stretching its long neck. It already has a long neck, right? Cranes have long necks. So it's stretching its long neck as if it's trying to see the sun beyond the horizon there as he is slowly coming up. The bird thinks, why is the sun taking so long? We don't know whether it is thinking like that, but that is how the poet puts it, yes. It's eager to see the sunrise, it's curious, it's impatient to see the sunrise. And when we are impatient, it feels like the time has slowed down. Yes, when we are impatient, it's like the time is taking forever for something to happen. So for these birds, for that male bird which is very eager to see the sun coming up, it's thinking the sun is reluctant to rise today. Yes? Well, the sun is not reluctant. Sun doesn't have feelings like reluctancy. Yes? But that's how a poetical expression goes. So there is a pair of Sarus cranes, the male stretching his beautiful neck to look at the rising sun. He seems to be filled with joy as well as impatience at the prospect of watching the morning sun. Now the poet says that the crane was trying to pull the reluctant sun out from the rim of the horizon. Those are the exact words in the first stanza there, yes? To pull the reluctant sun out from the rim of the horizon. The bird, the male bird which was stretching its long neck, it looked as if it was trying to lift the sun up from the horizon. It looked like that. So it is a poetic device. It's a figure of speech called hyperbole. Yes? Well, it's a figure of speech, and we have talked about it last year as well, so I am sure you will not be surprised to hear that word again, that figure of speech again. Hyperbole. It's spelled as Hyperbole. It's not hyperbole or hyperbole, it's a hyperbole. It's basically an exaggeration. Exaggeration means saying something, expressing something in an exaggerated way. So are we doing such exaggeration here? Is the poet doing such exaggeration here? Yes. He says the bird was trying to lift the sun out from the rim of the horizon. Can a bird lift the sun out from the rim of the horizon? It can't, yes? What he simply means through this expression is that the bird was eager to see the sunrise. But he puts it that way. So when we exaggerate something like that, we call it hyperbole. Now, it's a literary device, so you can't just play with it like that. It has to carry some meaning, and it has to belong to a certain context, and it has to be used efficiently, otherwise it won't be hyperbole. Not everything exaggerated is hyperbole. But it's a poetical device, quite often used in poems, yes, and it's a figure of speech. So you want to remember that. There will be examples I will be giving you later, and of course in exams you will have to recognize if there is a hyperbole. You have to recognize that. There will be options given with other figures of speech, so you have to recognize that. And bam! A bullet is fired that instantly kills the male Sarus crane. Yes? So don't forget, it's right there in the first stanza itself. The male crane was shot. That's how it begins. It was shot while it was waiting for the sunrise to happen. So impatiently waiting for the sunrise to happen, to see the sun coming up. It had no idea that early morning there were hunters right there behind them, carrying rifles in their hands, hunting rifles in their hands. So while this innocent bird was waiting for the sunrise to happen, a bullet is fired from behind. The hunters are there, and that bullet hits the bird. And one bullet is enough to kill a bird, yes? So it kills that male Sarus crane. There are hunters. The cheerful sight of the sunrise thus begins with the death of an innocent bird. So what was supposed to be a beautiful beginning of a day, the sunrise moment, turns into tragedy as the male bird is shot and killed. So what happens after the male bird was shot and killed? Let's go to the next stanza. She flew crying as he was picked up hands and jaws, and a proud neck was humbled to lie like dirty linen in a coarse washing bag. Okay, so the sad tone becomes intense here as we see what happens after the male is killed. Let's look into the details of this stanza. The female crane, yes, the mate of the male crane, who was standing close to him, she heard the bullet fire, the loud bang of the bullet, and then she cried in terror. She screamed, yes, and then she flew high up into the sky. That's how she reacted instantly, yes. The female crane flies away, crying in terror. Terror here because she's scared suddenly when she heard that bullet firing. It fired, the rifle fired, and there was a loud bang, and the male bird dropped. It collapsed. So everything happened in an instant, and then she suddenly got alarmed, and then she flew away, crying, screaming in terror. The hunters appeared at the spot and picked up the dead male crane in a rough, careless manner and threw it down in a dirty linen bag. So while she flew away crying after the gunshot was heard, the hunters approached that spot. They were far away when they fired the bullet. Now, after the male bird dropped dead, they come walking towards that spot. And then what do? They pick it up. They pick the dead male crane in a rough and careless manner, and then they threw it down in a dirty linen bag. Yes, that's what they do. So we have to understand why they did so. Why were they rough? Why were they careless in handling the bird? Why it didn't mean anything else to them? Let's see. They were callous, says, the poet wants to, make them strike as callous. So let's understand the word callous. What is callous? Emotionless, heartless, or emotionally hardened. So it doesn't affect them. They have just shot a wonderful bird. Do they not know about its special traits? Do they not have any respect for its magnificence? Or even if you call it just a being, just a creature, it has life. So do they not care about that? No, because it's something they do on a regular basis. It's their, illegal business. So their emotions have already been hardened. Said that they don't feel any of that sympathy for that bird. So that is why we call them callous. Callous carries all that meaning in it. They were cruel, and they were in an urgency to finish their job. They have just come there to kill one of them and then pick it away. That's all they want to do. They don't want to stand there, feel sorry for that bird, feel sorry for that female bird which flew away in terror and now circling up the sky. They don't have time for all that. So this is the emotionlessness or the heartlessness or hardened quality of those hunters or the poachers, bird killers. So a proud neck was humbled to lie like a dirty linen, says the poet. A proud neck. How can a neck be proud? Yes, we can be proud, or you can be proud. Yes, someone can be proud. But when we talk about neck, a part of the body, how can a part of the body be proud? Let's see. It suggests that the hunters stashed the crane away most disrespectfully, with no regard to the magnificence of the bird, because to them this magnificence meant nothing. So when we say proud neck, we are talking about that majesticness of the bird itself, the magnificence, the grandeur, that beauty of the bird. So this is a figure of speech as well, when you talk about a part that represents something whole. So these hunters, they did not have any regard for that wonderful creature. They did not have any regard for its magnificence, because for them it didn't mean anything. It was just something valuable to them. They had to kill it and take it away. That's all they cared about. So while the poet draws a special attention to the majestic neck of Sarus cranes by saying a proud neck, It needs to be noted that the proud neck equally refers to the whole crane. So like I said, it's a literary device, it's a figure of speech used here, which represents the whole bird. The neck, which is a part of the bird, represents the whole bird, yes? So what figure of speech is this? If you remember, we did this last year too. It is called synecdoche. Synecdoche, yes. Well, figures of speech, some of them you're already very familiar with simile, personification, metaphor, alliteration, and a few others. Well, some of them have funny spellings and pronunciations, like we saw hyperbole before this slide. Now we have synecdoche, yes. Synecdoche spelled as S-Y-N-E-C-H-C-N-S-Y-N-E-C-D-O-C-H-E. There is a CH here and there is a C here. Both are pronounced as K. This is synec and this is doche. This is not doch. This is not ch. This is not pronounced as ch here. So pay attention to that. When you learn something, it's important to learn its pronunciation as well. You cannot pronounce something the way you want. So pay attention to the pronunciation. Synecdoche. It's a figure of speech, and what does it imply? Well, a part for the whole. Or it can be the reverse, a whole for the part. So we will talk about that. Like I said, I will give you some examples of these figures of speech, hyperbole and synecdoche, at the end of this discussion. This discussion, however, will have to be continued in the next session. Okay, we still have a few more stanzas to discuss. I'm sure you really are curious to know what happens to the female bird or how it happens. We will get to that in the next session. Until then, I want you to revise what we already completed till this stanza. Look into the details and read the poem over and over again. Try to look into the other literary devices that you see in the poem, and then wait for the next session and then compare that with what you already understood, and then that is the best way to complete this poem, the discussion on this poem. So we will continue the rest of the poem in the next class, and until then, do revise and study. Do not waste your time. So thank you for watching. For any questions or clarifications, call me on this number or text me on WhatsApp or leave a comment under this YouTube video and I will reply to you. So I'll see you next time.